I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life, Strategies for Success. Each month, we present to you a special guest who is an inspiration to us and who offers us a strategy for success in our lives. Today's guest is no exception. He is an inspiration to me and to anyone who has known him. Our guest today is a motivational speaker. He writes a blog. He speaks Mandarin Chinese fluently. He is a great all-around guy. He has been vice president of a major firm. He also has been named in 2012 one of Cleveland Magazine's sexy guys. So today, our guest is my friend, and by the way, fraternity brother, Scott Fedor. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. You had to bring up the sexy guys.
You did. Absolutely, we did.
It's great to be here, thanks.
Okay. You know, Scott, I've heard you speak, and I mentioned that you're a motivational speaker. And one of the things that I've heard you speak about are your two bucket lists. So can you explain to us, and this will explain your life, actually, about bucket list number 1 and bucket list number 2?
Certainly, and hopefully everyone's familiar by now with the bucket list after the movie and the whole idea of really writing down things that you want to do and then going out and doing them. And the genesis of both of my bucket lists happened at different points in my life. And I believe that our lives are defined and shaped by our education and experience. And my education experience was very different at two different points in my life. And the first one that I wrote back when I was early 20s was really more centered about adventure, a little bit towards self-discovery, but items that really benefited me. Things that I could do, accomplishments to go out there and in my own mind, I guess, prove that I was living life. And I went about, did a lot of those things, and then later on in my life, after my injury and my accident, when I was forced to really re-examine what my life was going to look like from this point forward, I now had a different mindset, a different level of education, you could say, experiences. So when I set forth to decide, okay, what do I want to do with my life now, I put together another bucket list. And this one was much more, I guess you could say, for a greater good. It was more outward than myself. And it was a way to help myself by also really being able to help others to reach others. So bucket list number 1 was about my personal adventure and self-discovery. Bucket list number 2 was about reaching out and helping others. And along the way, actually became more of a self-discovery list than the first one did.
Well, I know bucket list number 1, you're a world traveler. I've seen pictures of you on the Great Wall of China. I know you've done some bull riding. And then bucket list number 2, and we'll get to this in our conversation, but some of the wonderful things that you're doing now. I know this is kind of a painful topic, but can you kind of briefly explain to our audience about your accident? What happened? And
Sure. It was July of 2009, and I was up at a lake house and went for a swim and dove off of a pier in an area that I was very, very familiar with, but did not realize how much the water level had decreased due to the sun and the heat that summer. And as soon as I dove in, I smashed into the bottom of the lake bed and broke my neck at the C3 level instantly, and was floating in water that was about 33 inches deep, and had no way of, I was face down, so I had no way of screaming for help, no way of moving, and ultimately ended up drowning before someone had gotten to me. And woke up in a hospital, and bam, just like that, within a blink of an eye, a whole new life was in store for me, and things had changed, and all those plans that I thought I had for myself, I found out I'm not in control anymore.
Right.
And things were going to have to, be a little bit different.
My understanding is, too, that when the doctors first spoke with you after the accident and after you woke up from all this, that you were given a choice to live or to die, and that there was a verse from Romans that was very instrumental in your decision. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I will say, after my injury, you don't know it now, but I was on an artificial breathing machine, ventilator, and I was up in a Michigan hospital. And because of that, if you're on artificial life support, you have that choice to either withhold those means or choose to expire. And up until I was given that choice in those first couple days, I would say I wanted to die. I was aware of what was going on, but at the same time, just regulated to the point that I don't want to live this life. I don't want to do this. And I remember there was a verse that was written down, Romans 8:18, which basically says, "For I reckon that the sufferings of the present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed in us." And this was a verse I had carried in my wallet for years prior to this. And after my injury, someone had gotten on my wallet, inscribed it on a poster board, and hung it right above my hospital bed. And looking at that and just keeping that in mind, when that question came, "Hey, Scott, do you want to live or die?" Without hesitation, unequivocally, his voice came out and said, "Yes, I want to live." And I really believe that was, God speaking those words for me, because my mind was not ready to live, not ready to go on. But those words came out very strong, and looking back, obviously, I'm thrilled
The right
that
choice.
I made the right choice. But at the time, I wasn't so sure.
I think that obviously that was the right choice, looking at some of the things that you've accomplished. And I think that your attitude really is part of that. And can you talk a little bit about your attitude and how that affects everything that you do? What motivates you to get up in the morning?
Certainly. It all starts with the right attitude. I firmly believe that. And if you don't have that positive attitude, or at least that mindset of, I'm going to try to do this, I'm going to try to work on this, then nothing's going to happen. And I always tell people, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes a huge difference. And after my injury, for the first several months there, first thing I thought of when I woke up was, am I still paralyzed? And darn, and that would just discourage me and cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of despair. And then through just constantly that positive thinking, my father, my mother, my sister were big influences on me, reading me positive quotes, constantly remembering that this isn't forever. Things do get better. That positive attitude that had been instilled with me throughout my life took hold. And I finally got to the point where I woke up, and now I'm like, hey, I got stuff to do. Let's go. Let's get out of bed. Let's get in a chair. Let's get going. So that positive attitude really probably did more for me than the medicine and the pills that the doctors gave me.
You hear that sometime, and for some folks it's pretty hard to believe. I think you're a living testament to that, really. Your accident was almost 6 years ago, and you've done some pretty amazing things in those 6 years. Can you talk about some of those?
Sure. The most amazing thing I would say is the independence I've been able to get back. Right before the doctor asked me if I wanted to live or die, he told me, "Scott, you're never going to move again. You're never going to breathe on your own again. You may not be able to eat or swallow. Probably won't be able to spend more than a few minutes out of bed." So that was, and then asking me that question, that was
right.
Pretty much a living death sentence that I was given. But I worked hard. The doctors are very well equipped to tell you what's happening right now, but they can't predict what's going to happen. They can't look into someone's soul to see that will or that drive or that attitude that someone might possess. And I was very fortunate to just keep the mindset positive enough that allowed me to work hard, to get off a breathing machine, to be able to breathe on my own, to be able to now go out with friends without a nurse, to be able to live in an apartment on my own. There's just a lot of things that I was able to do to get that independence back, which is what I'm most proud of. That being said, getting that independence back allowed me to really do some work that I'm proud of. First of all is starting a foundation called Getting Back Up to help other individuals with spinal cord injuries. And spinal cord injuries are expensive. And a lot of people don't have the support, don't have the means to get the products and the services that they need to work to get better. And unfortunately, insurance won't cover everything. And that's where my organization steps in. If there's something that someone needs that we believe can impact their quality of life right now, whether that's an adaptable product or a type of exercise service they need, getting back up will provide that for them. So I was able to start that organization to help individuals, which I'm extremely proud of. And then I found myself in a different role than I was used to previously I was a corporate guy. I was a vice president, I was a marketing sales guy, but I wasn't able to work in the same capacity, but I still had a penchant for the marketing and the sales. And I really found myself not so much marketing myself, but marketing the idea of, hey, a positive attitude, the right mindset, the will to keep pressing on can be a very, very powerful force. And eventually that kind of platform transpired into serving as a motivational speaker. And I've been fortunate enough to speak to many businesses, companies, faith-based organizations, schools, kids of all ages. So between running the nonprofit, doing my speaking, and also maintaining a blog, some pretty other amazing things I'm very happy to be a part of.
Right. I love reading your blog. It is so moving at times. I just read last Friday your blog on your mom.
Hug Your Mama.
And Hug Your Mom. And just, I don't consider myself to be a very emotional person, but that was pretty emotional. And is that within you? How do you come up with those?
When I write, I never really sit down and say, I may have an idea, but I never really script the way I'm going to write it. A lot of it's just a stream of consciousness. I start writing, and I've always been a writer. I've always been fortunate enough where I've enjoyed telling stories, whether it's through screenplays I've written or speeches I've given. And when I start writing, it's just there's somewhere inside of me, the story starts to connect, and the dots just flow and they make sense. And I've never been shy about holding back. I don't want to write in a way that depresses people, might make people sad when I speak about things I've gone through or have to go through, but I want to be honest. And I think that's the most important thing, is to be honest, to let people learn about my situation others may be in, so that you can apply those learnings to help you. So I'll write brutally honest, I'll write from the heart, and then after I get my thoughts down, then I'll go back and I'll clean it up a little bit. But I just try to share a little bit of myself, what I'm feeling, what I've learned, what I want to do, what I want to accomplish in the writing. And I don't write for an audience of thousands, I write for myself. So I write that as if it's just me talking to me. And I'll put it out there, and who knows, and sometimes they might be more vulnerable than I would have planned on being. Other times I might not say things or say as much as I wanted to say. So it's just, it's a process that evolves as I write, but it's always honest. I don't hold back, and I just try to write in a way that at the end of the day others might be able to benefit from as well.
Well, and I think they do, and from reading the comments that people answer to your blog with, certainly they get the feelings, they get the emotion.
It's very humbling to be able to, some of those comments I do get from people, and just the words that people share with me, it's very humbling, and it's it's nice that I'm able to reach people in that way. But it's not the intention, but it's certainly very, very humbling when people come to me and share with me what a message that they got from some of the words I wrote.
Right. Well, for any of our audience who is interested, at the end of the show, we will post where they can subscribe to your blog and actually read it on your website, which I think would be pretty neat for members of our audience to do. You've mentioned the importance of family and friends and your support group. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I know how important family is to you and friends. I also know that there is a little group of kids in your neighborhood called the WOMP group.
The WOMP gang, yes.
Yeah.
Talk a little this. I could talk a lot about the importance of family and friends. It is the most important thing. And I can state with 100% certainty that I would not be sitting here today in the position that I am, doing the things I'm doing, had I not had the support that I had of my family and friends. And the support network that I have, that I had coming into this situation, as well as what I've developed as far as new relationships, new people I've met, is just tremendous. And on the days when I may not feel like I have the strength to accomplish what I want to accomplish, I'm able to draw from those people. And they may not realize it, but I probably draw just as much, if not more, strength from them as they draw from me. And it starts with my family, my mom, my father, my sister Lindsay. It's been tremendous. And then there's the people that I've met since my injury. I remember it was probably a couple of summers ago. I was sitting outside enjoying the beautiful weather, and I heard this thump, and I looked over, and this young kid, about 9 years old, with a cast on his hand, had literally just jumped off a balcony next door into the bushes. And him and his two buddies were hiding from the neighborhood girls. And they asked if they could hide on my porch for a few minutes until the coast was clear. So I obliged. We got to talking. And one thing led to another, and these three boys, ages 6 to 11, just eventually became, friends. And they'd come over, they'd hang out, they'd, steal some snacks that probably were off limits in their households, and it just became a daily occurrence, to the point where every Monday they'd bring their homework over after school, and we'd do homework, and I'd help them with some things, and then of course I'd give them a few chores to do around the place that they do. But it really developed into a beautiful friendship that I otherwise probably would not have expected to have. I didn't see myself in a position where I'd be able to kind of assist or help teach young adults in the way that I did. And at one point their mom came to me and said, "I know you think, Scott, that you're helping them with their homework, but you're helping them with a lot more." And again, that was very humbling, and a very proud moment for me. And unfortunately they've all since moved away. I still keep in touch with them, but they initiated me into their gang called the WOMP Gang. Have no idea what it means. We tried coming up with acronyms for WOMP, but I'm still stumped. But they initiated me. They made me a flag, made my apartment the WOMP Clubhouse. So when they are in town, we'll still have our meetings. But it's just one of those experiences, one of the goods that have come out from something that that wasn't so good.
Well, and it's such kind of an odd combination that you're older. I hate to say that, Scott, but you're older than these young men, these boys, and just to be able to form a relationship like that is certainly wonderful.
It was, and one of the things on my very first bucket list, the more serious items, was become a father, and that was always important to me. Partly so because of the relationship that I had with my father, and all the things he did for me, and what the lessons he was able to instill that I benefited from, and then just my enjoyment of just whenever I'm around family with younger kids or nieces or nephews, I just really enjoy the interaction and the innocence that children have, and being able to watch them learn and develop. And I don't know if I'll ever get that point. I certainly would still like to, but I may, who knows, life has changed in different ways, so it may or may not transpire. But being around those kids and just being able to interact and teach them things in a way, that surrogate fatherhood has kind of been provided to me, and that's something I certainly enjoy and cherish.
I just think that is so neat, and you talk about that in your blog. And I know, unfortunately, we're back to the blog, but would you ever consider writing a book using your blog entries?
I've been approached about this subject numerous times, and it's something I've warmed up to, the idea of writing a book. Whether I were to use my blogs, I don't know. Maybe there'd be a few of them, But I think if I were to write a book, I'd want it to be something new and different that I haven't yet told. A lot of people that have much more significant stories to share than I do, have been hurt, have written books. So if I were to write something, I'd really want it to be able to stand on its own, stand on its own merit. And I think there's still a lot of stuff that I haven't shared freely with others that I've yet to tell. And I think if I were to write a book, I would see it as being more of a memoir, and really starting from the beginning of my life and focusing on the change that I've gone through as an individual, as a person, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and just telling that story, sharing stories from my past as well as my present, as I call it, and using those stories and using those anecdotes to shape my story. There might be a few blog entries I'd pull from, but I'd certainly want to put something out there fresh, something new. And there's, like I said, there's a lot that I haven't shared that I think I would go much more in depth with.
Well,
So it's an
sign me
idea.
up here. I'd be perfectly happy to buy your first copy.
All right, so I got
one sale.
I got an audience of one. That's all you need sometimes.
Right, exactly. Scott, what are you working on now? And I know you're working on a bunch of things, but what are your priorities right now?
I'm always working on something. I definitely like keep myself busy. As far as priorities, I try not to think too far into the future. I've really have come around to the idea of focusing more on the now, and I might keep 2 or 3 short-term ideas bouncing around my head, maybe one long-term idea. But there's a couple things. Obviously, the motivational speaking keeps me busy. I travel around the state, around the area, out of state, and I do tell my story. I do focus on whether it's a corporate theme or a church-related theme or high school, grade school, and I incorporate my story into a way that makes sense and benefits the audience. That keeps me busy. Running my organization, my nonprofit, getting back up keeps me very busy. And right now, one of the big initiatives actually is I'm in the process of building a property, a house, which I'll live at, but also at some point down the road, I hope to be able to open up and share to others with spinal cord injuries so they have a place to live. So they're not stuck in a nursing home, in a hospital, or in some type of institutional type of living. And I'm in the process of reaching out to businesses, organizations that could either offer construction services, products, whether they're something from as simple as a flooring product to a lighting product or to a service as far as donating services to help us. So if any of your listeners or an audience might be interested in assisting in this type of project, they can reach me through my website and could share more details. But I always like to have something on the back burner, something to keep me busy, something to keep me going that I'm proud of.
Well, and that certainly sounds like it will keep you busy. Scott, what, for the benefit of our audience, is your website? It's
www.scottwfedor.com. So it's my name with my middle initial W, scottwfedor.com. Pretty straightforward. And if you go to my website, at the top of every page, there's links to either subscribe to it, to my blog, or contact me. There's links to Getting Back Up, as well as a couple other organizations I'm involved with that are near and dear to me, and just some other things that are important to me I post on there as well, too.
Okay. Scott, what are a couple of really quick strategies for success that you would offer to our audience?
It's always interesting when people dole out their strategies, because what works for one person may not work for others. But what's worked for me before this injury, as well as even more so now, I would say the first thing is it starts with the right attitude. Attitude equals altitude. And without that right attitude, you're not going to get very far. Number 2 is don't let adversity define you. Whether you may be sitting in a chair with a broken neck or might be battling depression, you're not defined by your adversity. So it's very important to keep that in mind. And number 3, an adage that my father shared with me when I was in the hospital: inch by inch, it's a cinch; yard by yard, it's awfully hard. If you measure up the inches, you'll get to the same distance as taking all of it by yards. but usually inch by inch is more manageable. It's easier, it keeps things in perspective, it gives you short-term goals to work towards. So inch by inch is a cinch, but yard by yard is awfully hard. I think those three ideas have served me extremely well. And whether you're faced with a injury like this or some other type of adversity, I think they can really be easily applied and used in a variety of different ways.
Well, Scott, I love what your dad shared with you. I think that is obviously what you've been doing and what all of us could really practice, and it will make everyone's lives so much easier. And with that, I think our time is just about up. Thank you so much, Scott, for being with our audience today. It has been a pleasure, as always, talking with you. Good luck in the future, and certainly I think many of our audience folks will keep track of what you're doing. Check out the website, what you've done in the past and what you'll do going forward, because I really think you're going to do great things.
Well, thank you for having me again for the opportunity. I appreciate it. It was great to be here today.
Bet. You're welcome, Scott. Okay, so can we talk? I mean, talk face to face. I do a lot of work with generational communication, and one of the things that we're finding, and this is stereotypical, so don't get excited, folks, the younger generations much prefer to email and or text. The difficulty is that about 50% of the time, and there are studies that show this, 50% of the time, the tone of the email is not what the sender thinks it is. So what are we going to do about this? Well, I hate to say this, and I am not endorsing this product, nor am I recommending it. However, there is a website called tonecheck.com that will check the emotional take of the email before you send it and tell you whether you are sending an angry tone, a sarcastic tone, or whatever. There is also a text app out there that will stop the text from being sent for up to a minute so that you have a chance to decide if you really want to send that. Really, folks? Do we need this? Or is the solution just to stop and think before we send?